You're the kind of person who's smart with money. You've got a high-yield savings account. You contribute every month. You don't blow cash on things you don't need. You know exactly where every dollar is. And that confidence? That's exactly what's costing you. Not overspending, not a lack of discipline, the confidence. Because the person who's absolutely sure they're doing the right thing is the last person who ever stops to question whether they're actually doing the right thing. And the financial system knows that. It doesn't need to fool everyone. It just needs to fool the disciplined ones. The ones who save. The ones who feel responsible. The ones who sleep easy at night thinking they're on the right track. Because those are the ones who never push back. Now stop for a second. You opened your banking app today, checked your balance, watched the interest drip in, penny by penny, day after day, and you felt it. That feeling, I'm doing this right. But what if I told you that feeling, that specific feeling of security, is exactly what the system needs you to feel to keep working the way it wants? Not because you're naive, because you're disciplined. And discipline without the full picture has a cost that shows up nowhere. Not on your statement, not as a notification, not in your balance. It grows in silence. Every single month. While you sleep easy thinking you're protecting your future, you think your money is growing. But you've never stopped to calculate how far behind it's actually falling. What I'm about to show you is going to be uncomfortable, not because you did something wrong, but because nobody had any interest in telling you this before. If you want to keep getting financial analysis that goes beyond what the system wants you to know, subscribe right now. That's exactly what we deliver here. Let me introduce you to two people, James and Ryan. Same age, 28 years old, same city, similar salaries. Read the same articles, heard the same advice. Build an emergency fund. Open a high-yield savings account. It's safe. It's liquid. It's the smart move, and that's exactly what both of them did. $30,000 each, in a HYSA earning 5% a year, everything by the book, everything on track. Both of them feel good. That sense of control, of discipline, of being one step ahead of everyone else. But 6 months in, Ryan starts asking a question. A small question, almost throwaway, 5% a year. But 5% compared to what? James never asks that question, not because he's less smart, but because the money's growing, and when something seems to be working, you don't mess with it. That's human. That's normal. That's what almost everybody does. Ryan starts digging. Not obsessively, but that question sticks. And questions that stick eventually find answers. Little by little, no rush, no panic, Ryan starts making small moves. He doesn't pull everything out of the HYSA. He doesn't throw it all into the market overnight. He simply starts to understand the difference between parking money and putting money to work. James keeps the original plan, keeps adding to the account every month, keeps feeling good about it. Now fast forward. 3.5 years. James has about $52,000 in his HYSA. Solid. Safe. He feels good. Ryan still has $38,000 in his HYSA. His emergency fund, untouched. But he's also built a simple investment portfolio on the side. Nothing complicated, no day trading, no crazy bets. On paper, the gap between them doesn't look dramatic yet. But there's something the numbers don't show. Ryan knows where every dollar is and what every dollar is doing. That understanding is building a completely different trajectory. One that in 10 years is going to look like a canyon. James looks at his balance and feels good. Ryan looks at his balance and thinks about what he's building. The difference between them wasn't risk, wasn't luck, wasn't salary or inheritance or timing. It was understanding. Ryan figured something out that James still hasn't. And if you're watching this video right now, you still have time to be Ryan in this story. I need to be straight with you. A high-yield savings account is not a lie. The title of this video is provocative on purpose. Because the problem isn't that the HYSA is bad. The problem is what nobody tells you about it. What gets left out when the bank slaps a shiny 5% banner on their app and calls it a day? So let's start with what's actually true. Your money is earning interest. It's safe. The FDIC insures up to $250,000. And honestly, you're already ahead of a massive chunk of the American population that doesn't even have an emergency fund, that lives paycheck to paycheck. That would be wrecked by an unexpected $1,000 expense. You're not doing something dumb, you're doing something incomplete. And there's a massive difference between dumb and incomplete. Dumb is not saving at all. Incomplete is saving in a way that feels right, but carries a hidden cost nobody showed you yet. Now let me show you that cost. Let's keep it simple. No complicated formulas, no economics jargon. You've got $10,000 in a HYSA, 5% a year. At the end of 12 months, you've got $500 more, $10,500. Sounds decent, right? Now answer me this. What did groceries cost 2 years ago compared to today? What about rent in your city? A used car? Health insurance? You lived that. Everybody lived that. Inflation in the United States hit over 8% in 2022, stayed elevated through 2023. And even when it started cooling off, it ran above the Fed's target for longer than anyone wanted to admit. So think about this with me. Your money earned 5%. Inflation quietly ate 3, 4, sometimes 5% of that same money's purchasing power. What's left? In some stretches, basically nothing. In others, you actually lost purchasing power even while your balance was going up. That's what I call the silent loss. It doesn't show up on your statement. The number keeps climbing. 10,000 became 10,500. 10,500 became 11. The graph points up. But what can you actually buy with that money? Sometimes less than you could before. And that's just the first layer of the problem. But there's a second layer. And this one hits harder. It's called opportunity cost. Sounds fancy. It's not. Opportunity cost is simply what you give up by choosing one option over another. When you leave money sitting in a HYSA earning 5%, you're choosing not to put that money somewhere else. And that somewhere else, historically, over decades, has delivered dramatically higher returns. The S&P 500, the index that tracks the 500 largest companies in America, has averaged roughly 10% per year historically. Some years it's up 20. Some years it drops 15. But over time, that average holds. Now, compare. 5% in the HYSA. 10% historical market average. Sounds like a small gap, right? Let me show you what that gap actually does over time. $10,000 at 5% for 20 years, roughly $26,000. $10,000 at 10% for 20 years, roughly $67,000. Same money, same starting point, same amount of time, a difference of $40,000. $40,000 that never show up as a loss on your statement, that have no line in your app that says, here's what you missed out on. That never arrive as a notification on a random Tuesday afternoon. They simply don't exist. They never hit your account, and most people will never know they could have been there. That's the invisible cost. That's what the HYSA doesn't tell you. Not because the bank is out to get you, but because it's not the bank's job to tell you that. The bank's job is to hold your money and pay you a rate. What you do with that information is on you. And now you have that information. Your money isn't just sitting there, it's slowly losing ground while you think you're keeping it safe. If this is opening your eyes, drop a like right now. This is the kind of deep dive analysis you'll get on every single video on this channel. Now I want you to feel something, not just understand it, feel it, because numbers alone don't change behavior. What changes behavior is when a number stops being abstract and becomes something real in your actual life. So let's do that together. Level 1, the feeling of control. You set up the automatic deposit. You defined a goal. You're sticking to the plan. That feeling is real. Financial discipline is genuinely rare, and you have it. That matters, but there's a difference between control and progress. You can have complete control of a car that's heading in the wrong direction. The dashboard works, the steering wheel responds, you are absolutely in control. But if the direction is wrong, being in control doesn't get you where you want to go. The question isn't, am I in control of my money? The question is my money actually taking me where I want to go? That's a different question. And most people never ask the second one because the first one already feels good enough. Level 2. Growth that's way too slow. There's a moment almost everyone with a HYSA hits eventually. You open the app, look at the number, and feel something off. A quiet restlessness. This nagging sense that the growth is one too slow. You can't quite put it into words. It's not panic. It's not regret. It's just this feeling that the number should be bigger than it is. And you know what's interesting? That feeling is right. It's not irrational anxiety. It's not impatience from someone who doesn't understand money. It's your gut telling you something isn't adding up. Level 3. The comparison you didn't want to make. You've got a friend, a coworker, someone you follow online. They didn't win the lottery, didn't get an inheritance, don't make some insane salary that's out of reach for normal people. But their financial life seems to be moving differently. They talk about investing like it's just part of life. No big deal, no stress. They make money decisions without that low-key anxiety you carry around. They seem like they're building something, not just holding on to something. And you think to yourself, what does this person know that I don't? The answer usually isn't complicated. It's not day trading. It's not crypto. It's not some secret investing club you weren't invited to. It's understanding. They get the difference between money that's parked and money that's working, and they act accordingly. Level 4. The gap that keeps building. This is where it gets heavy. So take a breath. If you're 25 years old today and you keep $30,000 in a HYSA for the next 15 years at 5% a year, you'll end up with roughly $62,000 at 40. $62,000. Now imagine that same money in an instrument that has historically delivered 10% a year. At 40, you'd have roughly $125,000. $125,000 versus $62,000. Same starting point, same timeline, same discipline, same person. A difference of over $60,000 that shows up as a loss nowhere. Now think about what $60,000 actually means in your life. A down payment on a home. Years of college tuition for your kid. The financial cushion to walk away from a job you hate without breaking into a sweat. A life decision you can't make today because the money simply isn't there. This isn't abstract. It's real, and it's happening right now, in slow motion, invisible. Level 5. The realization that time is gone. Time is the one resource you cannot get back. In the world of investing, time is more valuable than capital, more valuable than intelligence, more valuable than perfect market timing. Compound interest makes money multiply on top of itself, and the longer that process runs, the more powerful it gets. Someone who starts investing efficiently at 25 and stops at 35, just 10 years of contributions, historically ends up with more money at 65 than someone who starts at 35 and invests consistently for 30 straight years. 10 years versus 30 years. And the person who started earlier, even though they stopped sooner, comes out ahead. When you delay, you don't lose the easy early years. You lose the most powerful years at the end. You're not just missing out on growth right now. You're shrinking the size of the future you could have built. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, because you still have time. But time is the one thing in this conversation that's running out while we talk. Now I need to stop and be real with you in a way that most people who study and talk about personal finance just aren't. Because it would be incredibly easy to get to this point, after everything I just walked you through, and land on, HYSA is trash, get out now, throw everything into the market today. But that would be irresponsible on my part, and you deserve better than irresponsibility dressed up as financial content. So let me be straight. The high-yield savings account has a real and important place in your financial life, a specific place, with a specific job. And when it's doing that job, it's genuinely excellent. The problem isn't the tool. It's using the wrong tool in the wrong situation. You wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw. Not because the hammer is a bad tool, but because it's not the right tool for that job. A HYSA is an excellent hammer being used to tighten a screw. So what is the HYSA actually built for? Emergency fund, Full stop. Money you might need tomorrow. Money that cannot be exposed to market volatility. Money that needs to be available, accessible, untouched, until a real emergency shows up at your door. Your car breaks down. You lose your job. An unexpected medical bill hits out of nowhere. For those situations, the HYSA is perfect. That's exactly where that money belongs. The benchmark I use in my analysis is 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. If you're spending $4,000 a month, your emergency fund should sit somewhere between $12,000 and $24,000. That money stays in the HYSA, protected, available, doing its job with excellence. But here's where most people go sideways. They stuff the HYSA way beyond the emergency fund. $50,000, $80,000, $100,000, $200,000 sitting in a HYSA. And they call that a financial strategy. That's not a financial strategy. That's money in a parking lot. Parking isn't growing. Parking is stopping in one place while you figure out your next move. And when the parking goes on for years, that invisible cost I showed you earlier starts stacking up in ways that make a real difference in your life. There's also a second situation where a HYSA makes complete sense, when you're saving for something specific in the short term. Buying a car in 8 months. Putting a down payment on a place in a year. Planning a big trip in 6 months. Money you're going to need in less than 2 or 3 years shouldn't be exposed to market volatility, because the market can drop at the exact moment you need to pull that cash out. For those short-term goals, the HYSA is absolutely the right call. It protects your principal, delivers a reasonable return, and keeps the money accessible when you need it. So let me break it down clearly. HYSA for your emergency fund. Yes, 100%. No debate. HYSA for short-term goals. Yes, makes total sense. Keep it there. HYSA as your primary long-term wealth-building strategy. No, incomplete, not enough. And the difference between those three situations is what separates the people who are just saving money from the people who are actually building wealth. Saving and building sound like the same thing. They're not. Saving is holding on to what you already have. Building is turning what you have into something bigger over time. Both matter. But confusing one for the other has a cost. And now you know exactly what that cost is. I'm not selling you anything here. No course, no coaching program, no affiliate link buried in the description, no sponsored product from a bank that paid to show up in this video. What I'm giving you is direction, because direction is what most people are missing. And without direction, even with discipline, even with money saved up, even with the best intentions, you just end up going in circles. So let's talk about what it actually means to put your money to work. First concept, liquidity versus growth. Liquidity is your ability to access your money quickly when you need it. Growth is your money's ability to multiply over time. A HYSA gives you maximum liquidity, limited growth. The market gives you historically superior growth, with volatility along the way, but real, compounding growth. Neither one is perfect on its own. Real financial intelligence isn't about picking one or the other. It's about understanding how much of your money needs to stay liquid and how much can be put to work for growth. That's the shift that changes everything. Second concept, saving versus building wealth. When you save, you preserve what already exists. When you build wealth, you create something that didn't exist before. Wealth is what happens when you put money into instruments that outpace inflation, that over time deliver returns that actually transform your financial reality. This doesn't mean speculation, doesn't mean reckless risk, doesn't mean throwing cash into assets you don't understand and hoping to get rich overnight. It means understanding that there are simple, accessible instruments, ones that any disciplined person can use, that have historically delivered results far superior to what a high-yield savings account can ever offer. Third concept, time as your greatest ally. You already know time as the enemy of anyone who's standing still. Now flip it. Time is the greatest ally of anyone moving in the right direction. Someone who starts investing efficiently at 25 and stops at 35, just 10 years of contributions, historically ends up with more money at 65 than someone who starts at 35 and goes hard for 30 straight years, 10 years versus 30 years. And the person who started earlier wins. That's what time does when your money is in the right place. And that's exactly what you give up every month. Your money sits parked instead of working. Now let me give you a concrete framework. I'm not going to tell you exactly where to put every dollar, because every situation is different. Different goals, different risk tolerance, different time horizon. But after studying and closely following how financially healthy people actually organize their money, there's a structure that shows up consistently. One portion stays liquid. That's your emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. In the HYSA. Untouched. Doing its job. Another portion works for long-term growth. This part doesn't need immediate liquidity. It can handle volatility. It has time to recover from market dips and keep climbing. This is the portion that belongs in instruments that have historically delivered superior returns. And there's a third portion for medium-term goals. Things you want in 1, 2, 3 years. Not as liquid as the emergency fund, not as exposed as the long-term investments, somewhere in between. 3 buckets, 3 different jobs, 3 different places. When you get this, money stops being a confusing pile of numbers sitting in one account and starts having purpose. Every dollar knows what it's doing there. Every dollar has a job. And when every dollar has a job, the whole thing works for you in a dramatically more efficient way. Most people have everything in one account, or in 2 accounts with no clear distinction in purpose. So the money sits in this gray zone, not liquid enough for real emergencies, not growing enough to actually build wealth. It's the worst of both worlds. The way out isn't a specific financial product. It's not someone telling you exactly where to put every dollar. It's understanding. It's clarity about what each portion of your money should actually be doing. And now you have that clarity. The next move is yours. We made it to the end. But before you close out this video, I need you to walk away with one thing. Just one. Not a number, not a formula, not the name of a specific investment. A question, a simple question, one that sounds easy to answer. But if you're being completely honest with yourself, you might not have as comfortable an answer as you did before you hit play. Here it is. Is your money actually working for you? Or are you just letting it sit somewhere that feels safe? Not as a gotcha. Not as a YouTube hook designed to bait comments. As a real question about your financial life. Right now. You know where every dollar is. But do you know what every dollar is doing? You're in control of your money. But is that control actually taking you in the direction you want to go? You're saving. But are you building? Because there's a massive difference between the feeling of security and actual security. The feeling of security is opening the app, watching the balance tick up, and closing it satisfied. Actual security is knowing that 10, 15, 20 years from now, the decisions you're making today will have built a financial life that gives you real freedom. Freedom to choose the job you want, not the one you need. Freedom to stop working when you're ready, not when the system says you can. Freedom to say no to things that don't make sense for your life, without your bank account going into crisis mode. That's what money should be building. Not just a balance that grows slowly in an account that feels safe. James is still staring at his HYSA, feeling good about it. Ryan is building something different. Which one do you want to be 3 years from now? 5 years? 10 years? The answer starts with a small decision. Nothing dramatic, nothing radical, nothing scary. It starts with deciding to better understand what your money should actually be doing. You already took the first step. You watched this whole video. That's not nothing. Most people don't even make it this far. Now drop it in the comments. Are you using a HYSA right now? How much of your money is sitting there beyond your emergency fund? And after everything you just heard, what's going through your head? I read every comment, and the best questions that show up here become the next videos on this channel. So talk to me. Your question is probably the same question a lot of people out there are too afraid to ask. If this video shifted something in the way you see your money, hit like. That's what tells me this level of analysis is worth bringing to you, and that I should keep going deeper. and check out the video that's showing up on your screen right now. It picks up exactly where this one left off. That question that's sitting in your head right now, about where your money should actually be beyond the HYSA, that next video starts answering it. Don't skip it. You just invested 18 minutes here. The next few minutes could be the most important ones in your financial journey. See you there.